Last week was the solstice. It's almost 90 degrees out and my first sunflower has bloomed, which means it's officially summer on the flower farm. Welcome to Red Roof Family Farm in Kelowna, British Columbia, Canada. Our property is 2.5 acres and we have a lot of flowers and a lot of cats. We are a zone 5, which means that some of our growing options are a little limited, and this is actually one of the hardest time of the years for us to be able to provide flowers to our customers, because we're in this gap where all of our spring crops are finishing up, but our summer crops haven't started because the beginning of May is when our last frosts happen. But despite that, the farm is looking incredible, and I can't wait to share all the details with you guys. A few weeks ago, up here in my perennial garden, there wasn't too much to show, but I was still really excited because I knew what was to come. And now the magic has happened. There's lots blooming and saving my butt. I am using the thousands of stems of yarrow that I have growing here to bulk up my bouquets. My greeneries are starting to get close enough that I can pick them. Feverfew, borage, there's lots of things in here that are really helping me be able to provide flowers to my customers at this tricky time of year. Now we're gonna get into the details. This is Feverfew that overwintered for me. The Feverfew for me is borderline for surviving the winters. Normally, zone 5, you're gonna have no problems. We don't really get much snow in the Okanagan, so it means that our ground freezes a lot harder than other areas. So I usually have about 50% of my Feverfew die. But despite that, the ones that did survive are nice and tall and blooming really early compared to anything I would have planted this year. This is a double Feverfew. I'm pretty sure that this is Tetra, and then the single Feverfew is Magic. These I love. I love the double. It's not quite as winter hardy as the single. So I have not as many options in here. I've been saving it. All my special bouquets get my special Feverfew. But I love Feverfew. It adds so much feminine, romantic beauty. It's the classic wildflower, local flowers look, and it's very abundant and it's very, very easy to use in the bouquets. So I love you, Feverfew. You've been saving me during this really tricky time of year for flowers. And then this is a weed for me. And I haven't used it in bouquets before in the past, but I was really desperate this year. I didn't have very many options. So this is borage, and I've discovered it actually has an incredible vase life. It's lasting really long. The flowers, they don't last very long, a day or two, and then the petals drop, but it has this amazing texture as a filler. It just gives a little bit of sparkle in the bouquets. So one year I grew borage, and it's self-seeded like crazy. So now I have like 500 stems. So I'm picking it like crazy, and it's been really, really valuable in the bouquets. And if you don't know, borage is incredible because it's edible. And they taste like a melon cucumber. They're really, really fun to have in the garden if you also like to use edible flowers. This video is sponsored by June's Journey. Embark on a visually mesmerizing journey through the 1920s as you immerse yourself in June's Journey, a free mobile game that combines hidden object challenges with a captivating storyline. The farm keeps me really busy and I don't have a lot of free time, so I really appreciate games that I can enjoy in a few minutes throughout the entire day. I love that in June's Journey, the hidden object mystery game levels are fast to complete, but there's also an entire detective story to enjoy. You also get to build out and decorate your house and gardens as you advance in levels, and I really like the beautiful and colorful scenes. Plus, look at these adorable characters. And this guy, Jack, kind of looks like Ian with his long hair. Not bad. Download June's Journey for free by clicking the link down in the description. June's Journey is available on Android and iOS mobile devices, as well as on PC through Facebook Games. This is my 50-foot row of perennial herbs that have been saving my butt. The first year I put them in, I was like, I don't know, they didn't quite get tall enough. They were these 14-inch stems, which isn't really very good for bouquets. I was like, we'll see what it does the following year. I might be ripping it out. And last year and this year, it's just been incredible. They get super, super tall. There are so many stems per plant. It's very low maintenance. It's very easy for me. So I'm very happy to have these, and I'm gonna be adding more of this in. I haven't been picking off of here, and this batch right here, this is a mountain mint that you can grow from seed. This gets a white flower, and it has a really soft mint scent. Even though these look beautiful as greens, and they are a greenery, that's what I use them in the bouquets, I don't pick them until they flower. If I pick them at this phase, not all the stems are gonna be able to make it into bouquets. If I wait until they flower, they're all gonna do a really good job of getting properly hydrated and lasting nice and long in the vases. If I pick them like this, probably like 30–40% of them will just, they'll never stand up straight and be happy. So rather than wasting my stems and being concerned about the bouquets that I'm sending home, I wait until they flower, and then they look even better. This is an anise hyssop. And the greenery itself is kind of just simple, not overly exciting, but the color these flowers get is just incredible. I really, really like this. This is similar to the Feverfew. It's inconsistently perennial for me. So every year I have to be planting more, and I lose about half of the plants. But the ones that do survive, this is like a single plant. It produces a lot, and they smell incredible. These, they send up a single spike in the center, so tall that when I cut it off, then as the season continues, it'll send up side branches. So I actually get a couple cuts off of most of these herbs. I get a cut in the early summer like now, and then they usually send up another flush in a month or two, which makes them really valuable. This is an oregano. This is just a really simple, basic oregano, and it gets a purple flower that I really, really like. I like it when it's in the bud stage. I like it when the flowers open. And then after the flowers open, it creates kind of like a tighter, dark seed pod. And even as that, it makes a great filler in the bouquets. This was one that I thought for sure I wasn't gonna be able to ever use it as a bouquet, but now the stems are, this long. They're, 2.5 feet, which is, incredible for any sort of bouquets, and it smells great. All these herbs, that's the thing that's so great about them. This I find is a little floppy. The stems aren't super strong. It's not like the anise hyssop or the mint. I have them really crammed in, so my center stays very upright. My outside edges kind of flop, and then I still use stuff that has a bit of a curve to it because it can be interesting in the bouquets, but you might need to do some sort of staking if you're trying to get nice straight stems for your bouquets at home. And then, this is a very Serina filler. This is Russian tarragon, and it's even taller than it was last year. It makes me so happy. And this, it's starting to get to the stage that I like to cut it. It gets these little ball buds that, it kind of has this like tight pebbly texture on the tips, and then it's this really delicate thin greenery. I just really, really like this. But when that happens, the tips get very heavy and the plant starts to fall over. So I do need to kind of maintain it a little bit. Here's a good example. It started to bend over. All these branches, they're gonna curve. If I pick it and set it upright, here, let's rip one off. If I pick it and send it upright, this is the shape of it. So if I want it to be more straight, I need to be cautious at how the plant is growing and maybe give it some support. I hate doing support, it's too much work. So the way that I deal with this is I pick the outside edges. As it flops over, I'm like, okay, cut that one before it bends too much. And then, it kind of slowly stops self-supporting itself, but it's fine because I keep getting more and more stems to pick. There's probably 30 plants in here. I don't know if you can see the scale. And it's just like a wall of it. And I can pick, I can pick 20 stems off of it every week through the entire summer and still have lots. It's a really, really great greenery to consider, but it's not a very fragrant herb if you're looking for culinary uses. I love yarrow. Every year I'm like, you know what? Maybe we should just be a yarrow farm. Maybe, like, forget everything else. Let's only grow yarrow. It's one of my favorites. It's really drought tolerant. We are hot and deserty here in Kelowna. So it's great to have something that enjoys the conditions that we have. We have a whole variety of colors, and the great thing about having such a mix of colors is it gives you a staggered harvest. So the first that blooms is the white, and this white was actually a weed in my lawn. And we dug it up and we planted it into the garden, and because we give like really good care to it, we fertilize it and we water it, it produces nice strong stems. They're really nice and they hold up in the vase really well, and I love just the clean white look of it. So this blooms first. At the same time that the white blooms are early yellow blooms. This, I'm pretty sure the variety name is Moonshine. This is its kind of second flush. It's very tall when it first blooms. These are the secondary stems, and then it'll be done for the year, and I'll miss it. Behind it, my medium blooming variety, medium time blooming variety, is Terracotta, which has this incredible color. You know, and the great thing is they do these, you know, each plant is a little bit of a different color. And you know, the more open they are, kind of the lighter they get. So you can get a nice range. But these tones are great. They go really good for if you're doing like a boho kind of look. You're looking to blend and get brown tones. This really, you can pull the brown tones out of this. Or I found that when you pair it with pinks, it gets really soft, really feminine. It's one of those colors that when you first look at it, it's hard to imagine how you're gonna use it in a bouquet, but then you hold it up and it matches everything. This variety here, I like, but it's a little short, so I don't use it all the time. This is Paprika, and it's this really great red color. If I don't pick this, it lasts like forever in the garden. So an incredible garden variety, but it is a little tricky to pick. So one of the things about yarrow is if you pick it when the flowers are fully open, you'll have great vase life on it. The stems will hydrate. They last really good. But if you pick it when it's not fully opened, you know, this right here, this is a good example, right? So this isn't fully open. This is getting close to being fully open. And then this section here, this is fully open. So if you pick it at a point at which it isn't fully open, it will often wilt. You won't be able to have the stems to be able to use in the bouquets. And my other varieties are great because all the flower buds ripen at the same time, but on Paprika, it often has the centerpiece, which will be ready, a side piece, which is starting to be ready, and then another side piece that's still totally closed. So if I was to pick the stem, only this would hydrate properly. These would start to wilt, and it would make it look like it's half dead. So I'd either have to strip that off, which would then make the flower a lot smaller, or, you know, so I don't use this as much. It's just a little bit tricky, and that's, you know, a tip for what to look for when harvesting your yarrow if you're having issues with getting it to stay nice and hydrated and not wilt in your bouquets. My latest blooming variety is my pink. This is a mix. I'm pretty sure that this is summer berries, but I grew this out a few years ago from seed, and I can't really remember. I've kind of bought summer berries, summer pastels, like, you know, so many different varieties over the years to try out that I can't remember what is what, but I love these pinks. And because it's a mix, you know, it gives me so many different colors to work with. I have soft pinks, I have blush, I have medium pinks, and then I have rich dark pinks all blended in here. You know, this is 400 plants in this bed. It gives me thousands of stems every year, and because it's the range of tones, it means that I can do pastel pinks with whites, and then I could take my dark pinks, blend it with yellows. Even though it's all the same pink yarrow, I can make so many different colors in my bouquets. Then I have my double daisy. These are a Shasta daisy, and I can't remember the variety name, but they're full, fluffy. You barely see the yellow centers, and these customers really like, and I love them too. They're one of my favorites. But this has been an incredible early summer flower for me. They have a really good vase life, and they produce lots and lots of stems that come back every single year, and they look very distinct from some of the other things that I'm growing on the farm. So I'm very happy to have this blooming right now. Another early summer bloomer that I have planted in together. This is Echinops. So this is just starting. Similar to the yarrow, I pick the Echinops when it's fully formed. If I pick them when they're just a little bit immature, you know, here you can kind of see the color is starting on this one, but this one, it doesn't really have the color. It still kind of has some green tones. This, it's gonna hydrate, no problem. Sometimes these will wilt. So make sure to pick them at full maturity. Don't leave them too long though, because they'll stop having the blue color and then they'll be fragile. You touch them and they'll fall apart, because these are all, they'll just become little seed heads, even though it doesn't necessarily look like it. Then I have my sea holly. I love these. These are one of my favorite flowers. Despite having a flower farm, I'm not actually a major flower person. I used to be all about my veggie garden, and I was so obsessed with my veggies that I didn't want to plant any flowers in it because I didn't have enough space. But I still had a sea holly. These look just so funky, so cool. They're all spiky and thistle-like, and they dry excellent. So if you leave them in the garden, they kind of just, they stay like this all summer. I really love them. I love them so much that I don't want to pick them and sell them. Everyone else loves them too. Anytime I stick this in a bouquet, it'll be the first bouquet to sell, but I'm a little bit of a hoarder when it comes to them. You know, they're out in the field and it's like they really need to be picked. It's the same as what I was saying about the Echinops, you know, these center flowers. This one's kind of the perfect stage, but some of the ones over here, they're starting to lose some of their color, they're maturing a little bit, they're getting a bit fragile, and so I really, I should pick them today. But I'm like, oh, they make me so happy. Maybe I don't want to sell them. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard when you have a flower that you love. That's why I always say one of the benefits is that I'm not overly in love with my flowers. It makes it easy to cut them and sell them and throw them in the compost. I have been loving this raspberry patch. This was dead sticks 5 years ago. I was pretty sure that I killed all my raspberries when I transplanted them here onto the farm, but I didn't. Now it's a big weedy mess and it's taking over this whole section of the farm, which is great because I actually cut them and use them in the bouquets. This isn't a thornless variety, it still has thorns, but the thorns are actually very delicate and not super pokey on the more immature stems. So they've been really easy to work with. I've been picking the first year stems. I've been cutting them off just at the height that I need for the bouquets. And because of that, I'm still leaving a foot or two of raspberry in the ground, because the way these style of raspberry works is year one, they produce a cane, and then year two, those canes produce fruit before the cane then dies. So this year one cane, when I cut off the top and use them in the bouquet, it would potentially mean that I would never get raspberry fruit, which would make Ian and the children sad because raspberries are delicious. But because I still leave a little bit, what happens is it sends up these side branches. You can see it's kind of starting to do that. So this is actually gonna bush up and still create stems that next year will set fruit, but the fruit will be low on the plant, kind of similar to this instead of way up high. And then I'll be able to yet again come in, cut the first year canes off. You know, all this will be down low. I'll be able to cut it off, take my stem to use in the bouquet. And then after I've cut everything, it'll reveal all my fruit, and it's a nice comfortable height for picking the fruit. So it's a little weird what I have going on with the raspberries here, but the system seems to be working pretty good.
Do you want to show off your beautiful weeds?
I mean, kind of. This is mullein, which is a weed, and it's a biennial. So if you want to get these big, huge mullein flowers, you have to actually leave it for 2 years. But I love them. I think they're really pretty. So there's lots of areas of the farm where the weeds have just kind of overwhelmed stuff a little bit, and I'll leave the mulleins because I like them. But they look great, I think. These ones get lots of water, so they're like the healthiest mullein you've ever seen in the Okanagan. They're so soft. Someone online called these a corn cob the other day, and I was like, that's such a perfect way to describe them, because they really do. They're shaped like a corn cob, and then these little flowers totally like have the look of corn kernels.
Looks like a corn cob after it's been eaten.
Yeah, by a child, because they left a bunch.
Yeah.
This snow puff cloud behind me makes me very happy, because this is the baby's breath that I fought to grow for years and years and years. This is actually only like 3 or 4 plants, because I tried and failed over and over and over again to get any of these to survive in my garden. I recently found out that it's invasive in the Okanagan, which made me laugh, because it's like, I can't even grow invasive flowers. But because it's invasive, I don't really want to use it in bouquets. So what we're going to be doing with this is we are going to be saving it for dried flowers, and then we're going to use it in our Christmas ornaments because they're all sealed up. With invasives, we don't want to use anything that's going to be potentially seeding invasives into people's compost piles when we send flowers home with customers. So unfortunately, this isn't gonna be going home with anyone, but I'm not ripping it out. I'm gonna save it, and then I think they're gonna look really nice in the Christmas ornaments. And you know, this amount is gonna be like more than enough for me to be able to work with. Behind me is another perennial planting. This is perennials that we planted last year. So they're not as established as the perennials that I was just showing you, but they're really highlighting the value of perennials for me, because now in the second year, there is a lot of flowers that I'm gonna be using this year that I'm really going to appreciate. Along here we have a bed of Liatris, and I really like Liatris in bouquets. They make a really nice spike, great vase life, they dry really well too, and they look like Muppets is what Ian always says. They're like fuzzy, they just have a really unique and different structure and look. We are growing purple, so you can see kind of the dark haze on these ones. And honestly, the purple's my favorite, but we also have a white variety. The purple variety blooms first, and then it's followed by the white. And so there is a little bit of a succession by having the 2 colors. I like the purple because you can use the purple at almost any stage, but the white, the flowers bloom on the top and then bloom down. So with the white, when you pick it when it's just as a little puff, it doesn't have as much impact as if you let more of it bloom out, but because it blooms slowly down the stem, if you pick it when it's like a little bit more full with the flowers, the tip starts to get some brown tones as the whites die off. So
the white's not as good.
Yeah, the white isn't as good for me with the market bouquets. I'd rather just stick with the purples. But if you're doing any sort of bridal work, you know, there is a week when it's nice to use. But I think I'm slowly gonna phase out the white. You know, I think I ordered 100 of the white originally, and you know, even if I use 3, like each plant, like this is a single plant right here, you know, and this is not a very happy plant, and this has 3 stems. You know, they can produce up to 6 stems. You know, I really don't need more than 50 plants, you know, to have a few here and there. Behind me, I have an entire row of perennial phlox, which I love. I went through our wholesalers catalog. We do our wholesale shopping at Van Noort, but they're Canadian, so that's only useful if you're a Canadian flower farm. And I bought every single variety that had height to it. There's lots of garden varieties that are shorter, but all the tall varieties, I was like, send me some of those. I want lots and lots and lots of the phlox. I think in total I bought 500 of them. So I have all the different colors, and the nice thing about having a variety of colors is, like what I was showing you with the yarrow, different colors bloom at different times. If I only had one variety of these perennial phlox, I'd have a week of blooms, but because I have 8 different colors, you know, it can give me up to 3 weeks of picking as the earliest varieties bloom out and then through to the latest varieties. So, you know, that makes me happy. These plants, you know, they got some height, they need to fill in. There's a saying about perennials, which I don't remember, but people always tell me in the comments, so remind me what it is. But it's like the first year they creep, the second year they leap, you know, and the third year I make lots of money as a flower farmer, something like that. Check the comments, someone will know the saying. So I know that year 2, I'm like, oh yeah, but year 3, that's when I'm gonna be super excited. The only variety that I remember off the top of my head by name is David. And David I love. I think I bought like 4 or 5 times as many of David, and it started to bloom. I have this one that I can show off for you guys. It's so pretty. These, you know, these aren't super happy. They need a bit more water, and they need a bunch of fertilizer this year to really do what they do at their best, but they can become these big, full, beautiful heads. This will be great for me to use in the bouquets, not having it so massive, but next year, bigger, better, so much David. This hedge along here is, I'm very excited about. This is Solidago, and last year, first year plants, they sent up one single stem that did this flower head that was like this big. It was really difficult to work with, but like I knew they were just getting established. This year, each plant, let's find a single plant. Okay, about this. This is a single plant. So, you know, there's like 10 stems just in this one single plant, and they're gonna be this perfect size. These make such an incredible filler. They just like become this like cloud of yellow, and it's like so bright and so cheery. So easy to grow, so easy to manage, so easy to strip. Great vase life. Solidago is really great. Makes me very happy to have this whole hedge of them. I'm gonna put it with sunflowers. I'm gonna put it with everything. I have a pretty good selection here, but you know, every time I come into these perennial gardens, I'm like, more. I need more. I need to buy like 400 Solidago. I need to have 1,000 David phlox. I need to have 1,000,000 purple Liatris. And Ian, it's a bad influence because he never tells me no. Ian, you have to tell me no.
No, I won't.
This was a very exciting surprise for me. This is Fama scabiosa, and I planted this last year. It's a perennial scabiosa, but I had some people tell me that it wasn't gonna be consistently perennial. It was maybe gonna die in the winter for me, and it didn't really produce very good last year. It produced beautiful stems, but so few that I couldn't really afford to grow it for a flower farm, which made me sad. I wanted lots. But it's come back, and it's doing the first they creep, then they leap thing. It has so many stems on it this year. It has 4 times as many flowers as last year, which means I can definitely afford to have more of this. I can fill up the farm. I have it in the white color, which last year, every single white we sold to a single florist. She loved it. So if I have more of this, if we're gonna be selling to florists, it's gonna be very desirable. And then I used every single stem of these incredible purple color. I was blending this with yellow. This like blue and yellow was a really fun blend. And it's come back really strong too. So this year, I think I'm gonna start 400 of the blue, 400 of the white. I have a bunch of seed on hand. I'm gonna get it started. I'm gonna plant it in the fall, and then fingers crossed, we'll have lots and lots of it next year on the farm. And then I have my Euringium or sea holly that I started from seed. And this is the second year on these too. So this is blue glitter, and then I also have white glitter. These have the smaller size flowers, and you know, same as the big ones, people just love these. I'm thinking I'm not gonna use them in bouquets this year. Partially because, as I told you, when it comes to sea holly, I'm a hoarder and I don't want to sell it. I just want to keep it all for myself. But also these small flowers and like the color on them look great. I think that they'll work really good in our dried flower Christmas ornaments that we make. And I have plans to make thousands of the dried flower Christmas ornaments. So it'd be really nice to have a variety of options. You know, this isn't, if I put these into bouquets, this wouldn't make very many bouquets, but if I use them for the Christmas ornaments, you know, this patch right here is enough for me to do hundreds of Christmas ornaments. So, you know, I'm a little bit like, where's the best value? And then I get to hoard them for a few months before I sell them. I can enjoy them all summer hanging from my drying rack. This makes me very happy. My favorite tea is Earl Grey tea, which is flavored with bergamot. Not necessarily this one, because this is a perennial that is grown for flowers, but this just started blooming, you know, 2 days ago, and I love it. It has this super rich dark color, which looks really good in bouquets. We just use tons and tons of this as a filler. It just adds this really, really fun punch, a little bit of fragrance, and because there's a million stems in here. There's more than I can use over the next 2 weeks as it blooms, but it dries really well. I was really impressed with it as a dried flower, and it still has that beautiful fragrance to it too. So, makes me happy. And I'll show you my annual bergamot, which started flowering the other day too. Last July, I planted very sad, very root bound annual bergamot seeds. They were supposed to be first year blooming and then die over the winter. They just sat there, they grew hardly at all, you know, but I kept them alive. Winter came, I was like, oh, well, you know, lesson learned. Don't ignore your seedlings, plant them at the proper time. But when the snow melted off and everything started growing back, this grew back too. It wasn't supposed to survive the winter. We had a really hard winter. It wasn't supposed to be a perennial. It's supposed to only, you know, flower and then the entire plant dies off. But here it was, and it grew and it grew and it grew and it grew, and now it's as tall as me, and I've impatiently been waiting for it to start blooming, and it finally did. And the color, oh, I love it. It's so soft and so romantic. And there's so much of it. These stems, you know, there's some small stems, there's some small side stems that, you know, kind of have this little bit of a puff, but there's some stems that are just, you know, here's a good example here. They're just massive, right? It's gonna be this just cloud of purple when they finally bloom. It's gonna be so beautiful and so fun to work with in the bouquets. And like this, how much did I have? I think this was 200 plants. It's not even half a bed, and there's gonna be more than I can possibly use. I'm gonna be picking and picking and picking. I'm gonna be drowning in this stuff. And it's like, doesn't matter how tall the bouquet is. You know, if we need to make urns, this is tall enough. I'm really excited about this. I'm so excited that I'm gonna try to replicate my mistake. I'm starting some of this next week. I'm gonna make it suffer, plant it out in the heat of summer, and then cross my fingers that it overwinters and blooms like this again. Because I don't think, this isn't gonna come back. This isn't like my other variety. It's supposed to die after it blooms, but very happy. One of our most important early summer staples on the farm, for filling up our bouquets, for making sure that things can be abundant, because this is a very lean time on the flower farm. Sometimes this window is the hardest time to find any sort of flowers that you can arrange. The flower is Indian summer Rudbeckia, and they're they're just pure sunshine for me. They produce 1 million stems. For us here, they start blooming around now and they do this massive flush. There's 1 million flowers. But as long as I keep it picked, they just keep producing. They go for us right until frost, and they're even very frost tolerant. We've had some years where the frost has come, taken out the zinnias, taken out the cosmos, kind of these classic summer flowers, and I still can go in and find usable stems in the Rudbeckia. So it's incredibly valuable for me. It's a tender perennial. So what that means is it only lives for like a few years and then it gives out. So how we manage it is we plant, a section of it, and then every year I start more. Let's say half of the plants come back, and then in the spots, you can kind of see it here. It's a little weedy, but there's these tiny little plants. This is where plants died over the winter this year. I put new plants in. These will grow all year. Maybe I'll get a couple flowers off of it, early fall, and then it'll overwinter, and then, I come back again next year and half of them will have died off again, replace. But it keeps the patch producing really nicely for me. Yeah, and I love them. Here on the farm, our goal is to have an entire bed, 400 plants that we manage in that way, potentially even 600. A bed and a half I think I could use. Because if I pick it really aggressively, like I said, it can keep it blooming, and I love it. We do something called the Van Gogh sunflower arrangement, which is we use like a couple sunflowers, and then we have this perennial sunflower that looks similar but different, and then we fill it in with the Rudbeckia, and it's like the Van Gogh sunflower bouquets where it's just 1 million different types of sunflowers all together. These are so important to my farm. These are Asiatic lilies, unscented lilies, and they bloom and are a focal for me in this period when there's not really much else. We have about 1,000 of them planted on the farm here and there. Every year I put a few more in, but we've allowed them to perennialize, and so they bloom all at the same time. So I can't put like 4,000 in because no one needs that many lilies in a single week. But like the yarrow, because I have a whole variety of colors, there's early blooming, mid blooming, and late blooming. The variety that I'm standing in front of is one of our latest blooming ones, and it's this incredible orange. There's some, they're like, I need to pick them because they're gonna start popping open, today, tomorrow. These, I love them. This period of time, it can be hard to find a focal flower. And I know for us, lilies can be a little bit tricky because I love the scent of oriental lilies. They're like one of my favorite scents in the whole world. I love having them inside the house, filling the house with the fragrance, but other people find them sickly sweet, it makes them nauseous. So people are very like love or hate on the lilies. And you don't want to alienate half your customers if that's the only thing you have available. The Asiatic lilies, because they have no scent, they still have all the beauty of the oriental, but the thing that turns so many of our customers off is the scent, and they have no scent. So it kind of opens it up, and lots of people, I think, don't realize that these are even available. Lots of people like it. They're really good for us and makes me really happy. Okay. I just need to geek out on lilies for a little bit, and you guys have to come see our walk-in cooler. Today is Wednesday, so since Saturday, we've been picking the lilies and storing them in the cooler to get ready for our weekend when most of our sales happen. So because of that, I have like a couple hundred lilies in the cooler right now, and they make me very happy. The colors on some of these, right? Like look, like this like peachy yellow orange, or there's this other variety over here with the speckles. How can you not love a lady with those beautiful freckles, right? So pretty. There's pinks, there's whites. I'm really, really happy. You know, it's gonna be a really fun Flower Friday for us when I get to put all the bouquets together with so many different options. And the other great thing about lilies is they store really well in the cooler. You know, we've picked a few of them with the flowers open, just because we wanted to get the timing right on them, and some of these are such big full heads that we'll actually like snip off the single flower if we need to. But yeah, lilies, I love it. They make me very happy. Look at this floof. Every time I open the walk-in cooler, he jumps in here. He's this like, he's our first long hair cat we've ever had. His name's Kaya. And I think he's so hot that he's always like, oh, let me in that fridge. I need to have a cool off. Because every time he runs in and he runs to the back of the cooler knowing that it's hard to get him. And I'm like, Kaya, get out of there. And he's like, ah. And then our final early summer flower that I want to highlight, which I teased at the beginning, is we finally have sunflowers. We picked our first sunflowers this week. You know, nothing says summer like sunflowers. They're such a classic, you know, and they're so bright, so cheery. It makes me really happy to have them back again. We grow pro-cut sunflowers. They bloom really fast. They're 60 days to harvest, you know, in ideal conditions. So, you know, early, the first flush usually can take like 75 days. So these, you know, I have a whole row. I have a variety of colors that I plant all together. So, you know, right now I just have this. I think this is, I call it the downy mildew resistant. This is the first one to bloom, but I have whites in here. I have plum in here. I have a whole mix of colors. So over the next few weeks, this whole patch is gonna slowly start blooming for me, and we'll be in sunflower heaven. It's officially summer. We've had a really, really rough year for weather this year. We had kind of like the perfect storm of weather to most severely affect our flower farm. We had a really, really late winter. All of our bulbs and everything were blooming 3 weeks late. So spring didn't start as soon as it should, and then instantly we got to summer weather. There was no spring. So because of that, our tulips, which should have been a 6-week window of blooming time, they were compressed into 2 weeks. We had peonies bloom at the same time as late tulips, which is insane. Normally we'd be having late peonies still available at this time of year. My annuals, my cool, loving annuals that we plant very, very early in the spring, they didn't germinate. The soil was too hot. And then I couldn't plant out my heat-loving annuals as early as I normally would because they had to get started late too because of the cold weather. So the farm isn't looking like what it normally would on a year when we only struggled with either late spring or early summer. Having to have both has really affected the farm in some serious ways. But despite that, I still have some not super happy spring crops that normally I'd have lots of right now. They look sad, they look pathetic. But you know, I'm scraping, I'm salvaging what I can out of them as they're gonna be finishing up like this week and next week. We're doing what we can, and so I'll show you this, but don't...
No judgment. No judgment zone.
Yeah, like, you know, I'm dealing with some hard stuff here, so what I'm gonna show you next is very sad, very pathetic, very embarrassing plants, so feel free to compare your plants to it and feel good about yourself. My favorite color is green. So when I found out that there is a green flower called Bells of Ireland, I was like, well, I gotta have that. And so I've been trying my best to learn how to grow Bells of Ireland for a few years now. The first problem was I couldn't get it to germinate. So I couldn't get to the point that I could even get seed to turn into a plant. But this year, look, success, I did it. I figured out that I just needed to throw them outside when it's still winter, get them to freeze and thaw a few times, and then I had amazing germination. So then I got them into the ground, and then they got slammed by the horrible weather. So Bells of Ireland shouldn't be down here. They should be way up here. They should be these nice, big, huge, beautiful plants, and they're just not that for me this year. So I've been hoping that they'd get taller. They're also like, they're light green. They should be dark green. So I think they had some fertility issues in this bed. I think they need more nitrogen. And then also I think that they were just really negatively affected by the cold and the hot that they had to deal with. Despite that, it's not going to be a complete loss. As I've been kind of referencing throughout this video, we make these dried flower Christmas ornaments, and one of the pieces that I'm always looking for in dried flowers is something green. Green is very UV sensitive. So what that means is when I dry flowers, right, and they're beautiful, like if I dried a Rudbeckia, it's gonna be still bright yellow, it's still gonna have lots of color to it. But if I dry something green, if I take like a greenery or a foliage or a grass, all these things, if I dry it, it will look pretty green, but as soon as I put it into a bouquet and it's under the lights in your house, it's, you know, getting some ambient light coming in the windows, very quickly it bleaches out to a tan color. The green just, you know, dissolves out of them. But the Bells of Ireland, because of how they're a little bit more, the color's a little bit more stable. So we're gonna take all of these little mini Bells of Ireland and we're gonna dry them, and then, you know, we'll either be able to use the bells individually off the dry plant. You know, they pop off. They're adorable. These little cups.
Little trumpets.
Yeah. We'll either be able to use these individually, or we can put, like, because the plants are so petite, we have these little like side branches on them that, you know, they're tiny, right? They shouldn't be this big, but because they're tiny, they have this, you know, kind of unique look where I can probably fit them into a Christmas ornament. So this isn't going to be a complete loss. We're still going to be able to salvage some value out of this, and, you know, you always got to look on the bright side of life. I know how to germinate Bells of Ireland, so next year, we're already one step ahead. We've learned something important this year about them, you know, just every year improving. So Bells of Ireland, next year, they're gonna be up here. Behind me is my status and other dried flowers like these paper daisies, and I also have some winged everlasting in here. These, they really like to get established in the cool weather. I started them very early, and because it was so cold, they had to get planted out quite late. So they were root bound by the time they got planted out. And then instead of being cool for the temperatures that they like, it was very hot. So then they were sad, they were root bound, and, you know, struggling through temperatures that aren't ideal for them. So in past years, I'd already have status. I'd be picking straw flowers. These would be, you know, available for me nice and early. They'd be bulking out my bouquets. They'd look incredible with all my Indian summer Rudbeckia, but, you know, it's just not gonna be the case this year. I think we probably won't be getting nice, tall, beautiful stems off of this until August, which is fine. The first ones we can the little shorties, we can pick them for dried. We'll still be able to salvage, but there's lots of it, but it's not looking like what it should. These look really pretty right now. So these are the paper daisies, you know, and they're like a straw flower where they're like all papery and they dry really nicely. For these, we're just gonna pop the heads off and we're gonna use them in the Christmas ornaments. So these being little shorties like this is not a problem for us. But I haven't picked it yet, so it looks incredible. Here on this side, these are some of the status. we have like every color. We have yellow and pink and blue and purple and white and apricot and rose. I love Status, so I was like, I want the whole rainbow. The only one that's kind of starting is the earliest to bloom up at the top. Let me show you. This is the yellow. It's always the earliest to bloom. It's quite often the tallest too. It's given up on a life. It's like desperate to make babies to set seeds so it can die. You know, we're just gonna keep trying to keep it going. Like I said, by August, maybe it'll do something. But you know, it's always interesting to know what blooms first. And then I wanna show these. On this side, these are seedlings that I bought from Ball. This was, we did an experiment seeing what the Status seedlings would look like. And the answer is they looked incredible. They looked really good. I would gladly buy Status seedlings again because I can't grow them that good. And you can see the plants are a lot healthier. These stems that are coming up are thicker. So, you know, this might start to produce usable stems for us a little bit earlier than my seedlings. But yeah, we're still a few weeks off before these produce any sort of flower. And then we have the winged everlasting. These are little like white pearl flowers. They're really pretty, and they have like a plant structure kind of similar to the Status, where the main plant stays pretty low and flat, and then it sends up these kind of, you know, fans of flower up high. You know, and these, like these are bouncing back a lot better than the Status was. Like, you know, with this, there's a chance, like, I don't think next weekend, but maybe the weekend after that, I might have something that I could fill into the bouquets. But these I mostly, like I said, most of the drying things are going to be salvaged for using in the Christmas ornaments and the dried flower selection. And then we'll quickly finish up with teasers for what's to come in the next farm tour, because we then have all of our summer planted stuff, which, you know, is starting to develop. You know, back here we have a cinnamon basil. We grow this for greenery. It's this dark, dramatic look. I love it. Smells amazing. Customers love it too. Like the herbs up at the front, we don't pick this until it has flowers because it wilts often without it, but soon on these. We have marigolds. I love marigolds. They just do this incredible bulk and filler. They look so punchy and so fun. We grow orange, gold, and yellow. This year I'm mainly doing the cocoa series. You know, and these, they're starting to flush out. These have been planted for about a month now, and they were, you know, they were struggling. But now that it's hot and now that it's summery, it won't be long. It won't be long until we have flowers. This is an experiment that I thought was going to be a failure, but I'm like, I don't know, maybe. This is floss flower. It gets these beautiful little purple, and it's very short, which is, I was like, oh, it's only going to bloom this tall. But I've been amazed, like this one, which is a little bit ahead, you know, it's actually putting on some decent height. There's a chance some of this might do something tall enough to be usable. This is my first year growing this, so I don't know a lot about it, and I didn't know how it would deal with the weird conditions that we have here in the Okanagan. So, you know, I feel like it's not going to be a complete loss, even if it's not going to be like decadent, huge stems like what other people grow. You know, I might be able to get something out of it. This is our tunnel of Lisianthus. There's thousands of Lisianthus in here, and they've really struggled this year too. They did not like the conditions. You know, it also, there's a chance that maybe we have some fertility issues. Maybe there's some chance that there was some inconsistent watering that was happening. But you know, it's finally started to stretch. What I'm nervous about is that the stems might not be tall enough. They might end up blooming on really short stems, which will make it really difficult to use them in bouquets. We were kind of hoping we'd have the ability to sell this to florists. Part of the reason why we planted thousands of them, but if they're little shorty stems, we're just not going to be able to sell them. But you know, every year is an experiment. Every year is like a learning opportunity. So there's a lot of money in here. These are not cheap plants, but I'm confident we can at least salvage back our investment cost. you know, and hopefully we'll be able to gain some knowledge for doing even better next year. This is another one that's just sad and stunted because of like the 1-2 weather combo. This is Trachelium. I've never tried this before. We bought these as plugs. They're supposed to be really tricky to start from seed. And you know, they're budded up. It looks like the buds are not far off from blooming. These, you know, they're supposed to be these massive, huge plants. They're not a ground cover, which is what they currently look like. But you know, you got to start somewhere on the learning. So, you know, worst case scenario, we can do some like vase arrangements. We can do some of these like kind of shorter things to showcase some of these crops that are petite. You gotta learn, right? And learning means making mistakes. Learning means doing things wrong. We're dealing with some pretty serious struggles this year, so I'm not gonna be hard on myself that crops that I don't know how to grow didn't grow properly. But I do like these, even before they bloom. Like this is like the bells of Ireland. This is on the list. I want to learn how to grow this properly because they make me very happy. Seeing them like in pictures, and even this, I'm like, it's gonna be really pretty. Safflower is another one that is new this year, and I don't know if it got root bound, but should be this, not this. But it's cool. I've never seen these in person. This is the stage at which, if it was proper sized, I could be harvesting to use as a filler when they're budded. And then they also bloom in like a little orange kind of thistly flower. They have a pretty good speed at which they go to seed to bloom. So I'm thinking maybe next week I might try another succession. They like the heat, so I'm thinking that maybe if I grow them out in the heat of the summer, you know, they have all of July, all of August to grow, I can get some more height on it, and then, you know, I can maybe have them for, you know, end of September as a filler, with it having that orange color. You know, that kind of darker color palette is really common at that time of year. And they also dry, right? So these little minis we could dry, you know, salvage in the same way that we're doing for the Bells of Ireland. You know, I'm interested. And then over here, these are my zinnias. My zinnias are very small because they got planted very late. Just the conditions, right? We started them late because it was so cold. You know, it took some time to get them out because we were just struggling with the heat. But, you know, zinnias, they grow fast. They don't take much. So these, we're not gonna have zinnia flowers until August, but they'll be happy. We'll have lots of blooms in August. And then we have our cosmos. Cosmos grow super fast, so I wouldn't be surprised if we start having these in 3 weeks, kind of end of July instead of into August, like the zinnias. And I hate cosmos. Every year I say, oh, those stupid cosmos, I'm not growing as many as I did last year. But then last winter I ordered like 10 new varieties of cosmos. So I have 2.5 beds of cosmos planted, even though I always say that 1 bed is more than anyone needs. So future Serina is not gonna be happy with me, but will look beautiful. We're gonna enjoy it, guys, because even if I don't pick them, they're gonna look gorgeous. And then we have some more marigolds down here. And everyone is after me. They want to see this. So we saved the best for last. I planted tomatoes this year. Last year we didn't plant any tomatoes. We were so busy, which was very, very sad, but also fine because we had lots in the freezer. But yeah, so this is 100 cherry tomato plants, which isn't because we're selling cherry tomatoes. It's just because I really like tomatoes. We might end up selling some, but we have tomatoes. We say we're tomato-based life forms. We even have merch about being tomato-based life forms. We barely survived last year without tomato plants. So this year we will be thriving. My absolute favorite season is summer. I would say I'm a sweet summer child. I love the heat, I love the sun, and I love the summer flowers. So being out here, having it, just starting to transition into summer, it has me really excited about what's to come. I know that there isn't, like right behind me, there's not very much here on the farm. It maybe doesn't look abundant yet, but it's going to. 3 weeks from now, everything's gonna be tall, everything's gonna be filling in. We're gonna have, thousands of flowers to pick every single day. It has me so excited and I can't wait. I really love summer. Thanks again to June's Journey, and don't forget to check out the link below.